Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Planet Tyro for some more anime talk. With a very special anime episode actually. Before I talk about that, why don't I welcome back my partner in crime for all my anime and manga talk, the old boy.
Still using that name, man. I don't know, after they remade that movie.
You're not a fan of the old boy anymore, you want to give it up completely and be just Catface Killer for life?
I don't want to be associated with a movie where the guy bangs his daughter. I'm sorry.
That was your choice. You knew that story.
I chose that before they remade the fucking manga.
Oh shit, I think we've just made a new announcement. I think old boy's gonna leave his name behind. Guys, leave a comment in the section down below if you agree with this, if you want the old boy to transition to the Catface Killer permanently. I don't mind. Hey, Catface Killers, I always call you Catface on Facebook and whatnot. So, it's good. Guys, let us know. What do you think? What do you guys listen? You've been guys listening to Old Boy for a long time, Catface. What do you prefer? Catface Killer, Old Boy? Why don't we let the fans decide, huh?
What are 50 fans? I don't see 50 comments on every video, even.
All right. Guys, we completely digress. I'm probably going to edit some of that down. Guys, we're here to talk about an anime. Well, actually, this is going to be the very last retro anime I want to talk about. And just to be clear, from this point on, when we're talking about anime, I'm going to try to focus more on recent titles because we've got this complaint for years that, you guys only talk about old stuff everyone's talking about. And, I think I said this before. If I didn't, I always wanted to focus on things that either myself or you really had an affinity for, something that was neglected or something that we think deserves a bit more awareness. And I'm happy to say, after this anime, I've kind of covered everything I've wanted to cover from the past. And I want to move forward. And I'm not even a fan of newer anime. And we're not even going to be talking about a lot of anime. But if we do, after this point, I will promise you guys it will be 2017 plus anime.
Yeah, I mean, the only way I think we're going to end up doing quote-unquote older anime is if they, remake something. Like the Berserk one, we'll probably talk about at some point, even though I'm not looking forward to that.
That's a good point, actually. Yeah.
And, other stuff that might get animes as well. I mean, JoJo's, they're going to do the 5th arc. They're going to do all the arcs. So they'll probably pop that out sometime next year.
Of course. I'm just talking about by release. I'm not even talking about the age of the material. So any new anime that's released, even if it's a retro manga adaptation, that's what we're going to focus on. So without further ado, guys, you can see it in the title already. We're talking about an anime called Katanagatari, which is translated to Sword Story.
Oh, good pronunciation for once.
Well, katana, that's easy because it's just...
No, that's easy. Usually people slur the R's and stuff when it comes to more elaborate words in Japanese.
Sure. It's just something I've heard so many times. So, this is an anime I watched years ago. Guys, just in case you're thinking, well, this is old. Guys, again, I watched this years ago. And the reason I wanted to speak about it is Old Boy because Old Boy, he has a very... I don't want to say skewed perception. He has a thing about Shounen. He has a thing about romance. And this is one of the titles that is very odd. It does things a bit differently. And it's kind of neglected. So it kind of ticks all the boxes. And it's definitely something I think we should talk about. I'm not saying it's a masterpiece. But believe me, I got my criticisms for it. But I do think it qualifies for something we'll talk about on Planet Tyro. So we're going to talk about it. And Old Boy, you just finished it about, a week ago now from the time of this recording?
Roughly.
I rewatched this, just so you guys know. It's very fresh in my mind. So for those of you who don't know what Katanagatari...
Right after I praised you. This is why cats always just scold their masters.
Screw you. So, Sword Story, what it's about... Catface, I did so much talking. Tell us what the anime is about.
All right, check this out. Back in feudal Japan, probably the most... Especially with anime and manga, but the most famous period in feudal Japanese history is known as Sengoku era, which is when there wasn't a shogunate. This was right before there was the first shogunate. What you had was a bunch of different countries actually within Japan where there was a warlord that was the lord of that area, and they were all fighting each other over resources and land and shit. Okay. Now what happened was you eventually got divided into two groups, and the most famous battle in this time period, army-wise, involved people following Oda Nobunaga and I don't remember the guy's first name, but it was shit. Actually, I don't remember his last name either. This is kind of bad. the guy that eventually became the first shogun. My bad.
That's fine. Keep going.
Yeah. So they had their two groups, and the battle is called the Battle of Sekigahara. This is actually such a famous battle that many renowned samurai and swordsmen and founders of swordsmanship schools were in that battle. The most famous being Miyamoto Musashi. He was actually in this battle. So the story of Sword Story branches off of this. Like, that happened before it. And the result was that there's a swordsmith that lived during that period, and he wasn't really interested in the war. He wanted to make swords. And these swords, they seem to defy physics and, psychology and all sorts of weird things that even to this day, our understandings of it seems like magic, basically.
Yeah.
But he created these swords. He also created something else that we'll touch on later, but the main focus was he made these swords, and the shogunate became obsessed with these swords. There was 12 special ones. The guy made like thousands of them, but there were only, I think it was 10 or 12. It was 12, right?
Yeah, I think it's 12 or 13 because there's 13 episodes. Let's go with 12 just for now, even if we're wrong. Go on.
So he made like 12 very special, unique swords, and they got spread throughout the country. Different warlords or swordsmen ended up with them for organizations for whatever reason. The whole premise of Sword Story is that there is this, I'm not sure if I want to call her a bureaucrat, but there's like this official to the shogun that's like going around collecting the swords because nobody's been able to do it before. And it's believed that whoever has all of them will have enough power to control all of Japan without any complications. I mean, not that the shogun's not controlling Japan, but, it's that insurance. So she's like trying to accomplish this to leverage her position, and be probably promoted or whatever. There's other guys, there's like a ninja group that she originally hired that betrayed her that are also trying to collect the swords. There's a rival that appears later on, a rival official to the shogun that's also trying to accomplish the same thing. So it's kind of neat in that sense that, it's not just one guy going through and just connecting the dots and you're done. So she decides to do this by going to an island where in this alternate history Japan, there was a rebellion, and this guy who is considered a swordsman, but it's because he specializes in barehanded combat versus swordsmen. That's his style. What is it, Kyoto Ryu or what?
Yeah, I think that's it, yeah.
We'll look it up again, but like his specialization is that, so they consider him a swordsman. After this rebellion, he defeats the guy who started the rebellion, and he goes off to an island to live the rest of his life. He doesn't give a shit about anything else. The daughter of the rebellion's leader is the official that I was first talking about, who wants to collect all the swords, and then she had the ninjas that betrayed her and everything. And I'm sorry, I just don't remember her name.
No, that's fine. And you know what? Before we say anything more, I just want to say, listening to you explain the storyline, this sounds like a very political anime. I mean, the way you described it, and you didn't do anything wrong with your description, but it sounds like, just running off the story like you did, it sounds like there's a lot going on with the politics and the history and all that stuff. And that's to the anime's credit, because when you watch the anime, it doesn't even seem like anything like Oboy just described. It seems like a very basic, episodic sword hunting anime. And that's one of the things that took me aback by this. I thought, okay, I remember when I watched this back in 2010, I thought to myself, the animation style's kind of weird, and they're talking a lot about the setup. They're doing a lot of backtracking on this. But then when it got to the action, I thought, okay, so this is, I couldn't get my head around if this was going to be super simple, or if this was going to be super political, or if it was going to be super chatty. And it ends up being a mixture of all of the above. And on top of that, the execution of the anime is 45 minutes an episode. So you've got a very differently executed anime in all across the board, from the story, from the characters, actually, I said that wrong. You've seen this kind of thing done before, but the way it's executed is different. So that's kind of what makes it stand out. So let's start with the animation, oh boy. I think the animation is the first thing that sounds to everybody. It's drawn, the thing it reminds me most of, which I know you're not a big fan of, is One Piece, because One Piece has these really unrealistic character designs, but it mixes it with very pretty colors and great backgrounds. That's not how One Piece started, but One Piece is kind of like that now. This is a very interesting art style that I think is it's purposefully done. I wouldn't say it's simple. It's got a mixture of everything, but the character designs look kind of odd.
Like the ninjas, for example, do not look like ninjas for the most part. They look very noticeable. They're very colorful. Their outfits are impractical a lot of the times.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, if I were to describe it, just looking back at what I even said, it's like, I wouldn't say Game of Thrones because this is not nearly as politically driven as Game of Thrones is, but if Game of Thrones was to focus on, like, 3 characters and their journey and maybe be more for younger teenagers, like a beginning stage of Game of Thrones in that sense.
Okay.
I even finished what the whole story was. Like, this, so the rebellion leader's daughter.
No, you don't need to. Let's just move on with this analysis. Let's not bother with the story anymore. So, I mean, so the animation didn't throw you, is what I was asking. The animation didn't surprise you.
I don't think it bothered me in terms of watching this. Like, the thing that kind of made me hesitant about recommending this to other people is it is super chatty. Like, I told you this before. I'm normally like, I like longer episode stuff. Like, this could have been 20-minute episode stuff if they cut out a lot of the chatter. Even if you want it to be very formal and some, like, they would go to each owner of the swords. They would first try to negotiate with them. Then it would, basically do a duel usually. They agree to terms of a duel. And it's just like, it's a lot of extra stuff that I don't think the typical person that looks at, oh, this guy's going around collecting swords, it's supposed to be action, is going to associate with that.
I agree with you. And I think that's the purpose. I think that's where a lot of people might misconstrue this anime. I think this anime is not. I think it's about the dialogue. I actually think this anime is all about the characters and the dialogue.
No, it definitely is, because like there's parts where like they hype up one of the owners of the swords, like this is the greatest swordsman ever, and then they don't even show the fight.
Yeah,
like they show something else that happens, and then the 2 characters, the daughter and the guy she picks up to help her with the task, just talk about it.
So it would be fair to call it more action comedy, because to be honest with you, most of it is comedy, very lighthearted comedy, not slapstick.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah. Like even romantic comedy, but like that's the problem I have is like it kind of branches into a lot of things, but it doesn't go very deep into any of them.
That's true, and that's part of my criticism as well. So now we spoke about animation. Action-wise, I know the action is always at the tail end of the episodes. It's never that long, but what do you think of the action?
First of all, there's nothing wrong with short action. If action is too long, it is boring. So, like, if it's too short, of course it's bad too. But I felt like it was a good length. I mean, if you're going to give me that long of an episode, I think there should have either been more or it should have been a bit longer. But it was fine. I mean, like, I wouldn't criticize it.
Yeah. Were you impressed with the battles? Because I know some of them, they tried to be really cool. I mean, I like the fact that it plays with the comedy. The guys trying to make a finishing move, and some of the bad guys are very, bravado-ish, very arrogant. And some of them are really nice. There's one episode in particular where he's, I think he's being trained by, no, not that one. There's another one. I was going to talk about the training one, but
she was still nice to him though. Yeah.
Yeah, but she didn't die. I was actually thinking of one where... was she the one he had to kill, actually?
No, the one that trained him is like one of the only ones that actually lived. Like, they dueled, and she lived because she gave him the sword on the premise of a non-killing duel. Yeah. But there was one... I think I know what you're talking about. She was, like, watching over girls that had been abused, and, like, they had no families and stuff. And, like, her sword was actually, like, an old sword that was, like, a copy of like a bunch of other swords. And it's like they didn't know which one was the real sword, but they knew the power was calming them. Like it had the ability to calm people, and that's how she was choosing to use it, was to calm these mentally and physically and emotionally abused and worn down women. He still killed her. And he took the sword.
Yeah, and well, we're going to talk about the characters and their psyches in a moment, but I want to really compliment this anime on being episodic and doing it in a way that made me interested, because there's a lot of episodic shounen which I do not give a shit about. And I think the fact that, the dialogue between the 2 main characters and some of the sword owners as well is pretty interesting. They build up pretty well. And I found myself pretty much enjoying overall almost 90% of it. Especially, I think the thing that impressed me the most is the sword owners themselves. Most of them have really somewhat interesting stories, and because it's 40 minutes an episode, you really have a good chance to know them before they battle. And not all of them are evil. Some of them have their own kind of story, and the main character has to kind of outsmart them or outbattle them. And again, they don't go too deep into it. But I found each episodes interesting enough for what it was, which was surprising to me because honestly, I'm not a fan of episodic shonen.
I don't know. I'm hesitant to say it's episodic because like I have one running storyline for every episode that was all connected.
True.
Like episodic to me makes me think this episode is self-contained. It has a story for the episode and it's not connected to other shit. Like Cowboy Bebop is that definition to me. Like I love this anime and everything. Don't get me wrong, but it doesn't really have a running storyline except for like a handful of episodes out of what I think like 24, 25 episodes.
Yeah.
All the other ones are not connected to each other.
Yeah. I'm with you 60-40 because while I was watching anime the first time, I actually felt like the actual baseline story wasn't going anywhere. Like they're hunting for the swords, other people hunting for the swords, but you're focusing on these two main characters. But then there's like things happen when the main character sister interjects halfway through. So mostly I have to give it to you. But for some reason, for me, it felt more episodic. I just think it was done well for being somewhat episodic. And we're going to ride right into the characters. Now, I think it's good that we focus on the main two characters, which, ironically, I can't figure the names right now.
Okay, so the dude is Shichika, and the girl is Togome.
That's it, and I completely forgot that. So I'm glad you got the names there. Let's talk about Shishika, the main character, first of all. You know what? When the anime started, I like the fact that he was an isolated character. He didn't really have much human interaction, so his personality was kind of skimmed. And he grows as a person throughout the anime. And again, hate to bring up One Piece, but he kind of reminds me of the main character, Monkey D. Luffy. Kind of aloof, but he's much more enjoyable than that character.
Is Luffy aloof because he doesn't have any socialization with other people and stuff?
Funny enough, now that I think about it, Monkey D. Luffy can be on the spectrum, for all I know. But no,
okay.
He has a family. He has a big and he has a crew of people. So not necessarily.
Like, I actually understand why Shishika is the way he is. Like, sure. And by the end of the series, he's pretty well developed. He has a personality. Yeah. He has a wide range of emotions. So it's like because they set up that premise, it's believable for me the way he starts out versus the way he ends in that journey to it.
Yeah. So I really liked him. I thought he was a fine main character. I think, to be honest with you, would I say he was? I thought they were trying to do something a bit subversive with him by making him seem like a very stereotypical insert yourself character who's got no personality, but then he does grow and he does make a lot of in-jokes, and especially because he doesn't understand the intricacies of kind of falling in love and he just listens to them Togame so much. So I think he was kind of self-aware of what he was near the end, and all through I felt like he was written in a way that as a viewer you become more self-aware of him and he becomes self-aware and grows. I thought it was a nice dichotomy there, or maybe I'm reading too much into it. But I thought it kind of played with the audience a little bit. Like you thought it was going to be vanilla, and he kind of develops and so okay, he's actually got a strong personality where he starts questioning things about what he's doing himself, and even has moments where he doubts himself, which you might not think a typical shonen character should do.
I don't know if it's something I would think a typical shonen character should do, but I know it's one that at some point during a story, especially longer running ones, they will. It felt natural to me though, because he basically had no exposure to anybody or society or anything. And then you're having him move through city to city and interactions. Like, you can't even tell people apart at the very beginning. So, like, it makes sense to me that, like, he would have doubts at least once during the course of the journey, which he did a few times. But it was good. Like, it wasn't overplayed. It wasn't melodramatic to me. I enjoyed this more than I disliked it. I mean, that's the best way to put it.
And what about Togami then?
Tagami. It's like she was entertaining. Her catchphrase "Cheerio" was actually kind of funny, but I don't know. Like, I don't really have anything bad to say about her. I didn't really understand what's going on with her eye. Like, maybe I missed the explanation, but her eye would turn into a cross once in a while, and it's just like it doesn't seem to do anything. I
thought that's when her mind was in stratagem mode. Like, when her eyes like that, then she's in that mode where she can figure out plans, like a heightened sense of. I don't think it's like a superpower, but I think it just
supposed to indicate when she's like really cramming it.
Yeah, that's basically.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, other than that, though, she's all right. I mean, at the end.
We'll get to that. I don't want to talk about that yet, because I think very end.
I'm just gonna say, at the very end, like, she says, something that's like, I'm not sure
Yeah.
if she's just saying that in that moment so that person can move on, or if like that's what was really happening.
We're going to get to that, and then we're going to spoil that bit, because I think that's a bit of a... Let me just say this, because this is one of the main reasons I wanted to talk to you about this anime in particular. Now, you're always complaining about romance in anime and in shonen as well. More of anime manga in general, but here we've got a shonen anime that does this weird romance. The romance between the two characters, I wasn't sure if it was fake. I wasn't sure if it was pretend. As the story goes on, it becomes more believable. And then we're going to touch at the end, I liked it, but I'm a bit confused about the romance. I tried to play it for comedy because I think that was the main thing. It shouldn't be taken seriously, but I don't know, man. I feel like I appreciated that they didn't beat around the bush with certain things, especially with do this because you love me thing, which I think is very interesting, especially trying to give the main character, Shishisha, that reason for doing what he's doing, which makes sense, which her reason for saying that was pretty clever and made sense. But as for their building romance through the anime, I don't know if I took it seriously. So I want to know what you think about it.
Well, to get more into detail, for people who perhaps haven't listened to our previous recordings and they're just jumping in now, like one of my biggest problems with romance, well, actually not even in anime, in manga, just in general, it's like when it's portrayed in the media, is like there's this wishy-washy, I got feelings for this person, but I can't say it, or this person clearly has feelings for me, but I'm so dumb I can't pick up on it, sort of thing. Like in this anime and manga is especially bad at the second one, but it's just like it's done over and over and over and over. It's like, God, don't fucking do this anymore, please stop doing this. And in this anime they flipped it around. It's just like, I am going to have you help me because we are going to be in love. And they're just like throughout the whole thing, except for like one episode, which actually was a nice break, just to inject it in there, because the other episodes was the opposite, where it's like, I like you, or I love you, or do this because you love me, or I'm doing this because the whole reason why I'm doing this is because I love you. Like they're very open about it, whereas in a typical anime and manga story, they're not. It's always like this fidgety, like you hated the thing in Hajime no Ippo, right? That's like classic anime and manga quote unquote romance. If it's not the main focal point of the story, but it's in there, it's like that.
Yeah.
So in the reverse, it's just like they're just like, fuck it, I don't have time for that bullshit. We gotta collect these swords. We're going to keep building up our relationship, kind of like a game, even like where it's like 4 relationship points, and you're just gonna keep doing it. Yeah. And they're just very straightforward about it, and that's like, to me, that's more like what romance is like, based off my dating experience and everything. In America, I admit, but still, it's like, it's not that fucking like 10-year-old bullshit. It's like, this is what it's like when you're adults. You're just honest and upfront about that shit.
Yeah, my reason for being confused is because she used it for a reason that she just told him from the first episode, you're going to fall in love with me, you're going to do this because you love me, do this for love. And, she's putting that on him. I'm not taking this too seriously.
She is, and he clearly doesn't really understand what's going on at first. Like, I will come out and say that.
Yeah, and then all through the anime, it's like she just keeps on telling him, and you're not sure. And then the one episode where she really she's like, you know what, I need to make this guy know, is when she kisses him, hard, and then he really, from that point he really starts to fall. And it's like I wanted to hate her, just being manipulative, but you can tell that she's kind of lying to herself, that she's got feelings. So in a way, I did appreciate that they addressed the love thing from the beginning, but she was using it for manipulation against him. But he's a killer, so I don't feel bad for him. It was a very different experience for me in terms of romance, and it's a very weird setting anyway. The whole execution of anime is off anyway, and I
would say more of an original dichotomy than what I'm used to when it comes to romance. Yeah.
I'll just say it was slightly refreshing, but it was hit and miss, and we'll get to the very end because there's this weird thing that happens, and I don't know, but so I kind of want to wrap a lot of this up and say this. Now, the ultimate storyline, which you mentioned with the collecting of the swords and the politics with the history and all governments and stuff like that, you know what? All of that stuff is a backdrop to the dialogue and the two characters. And I thought, as I was watching it, I was like, I thought the world building was interesting because whenever you heard about other characters, what they were going through, it seemed like the mangaka wrote a lot. And I think this was based off a manga. I'll get to that in a minute. But he did write a lot. There was a world written behind everything. And the more other characters spoke about it, the more you get to hear about it. Now I thought to myself, if they went more into it, would it made the anime better? I would say no, because I like the fact the anime is kind of ignoring all of that. We could talk about the history of the enemies, we could talk about the history of the small, but we're not going to do that. We're going to focus on the slight silly slice of life adventures of the guy and the girl collecting the swords, and and I just thought it was kind of it was refreshing and kind of a joke. Like this anime was to me it was kind of like a joke on the whole kind of genre of this kind of story, and they weren't going to focus on the things they usually focus on. They're going to focus.
So, like, just to break in here, like, you feel about this anime kind of similar to, it sounds like, to what I felt about The World God Only Knows, where they get a commentary on this genre or this premise.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I do think so. I don't want to use the word subversion because I don't think it went deep into the elements to make it a complete subversion, but I do think overall, I'm not going to call it a parody either. I do think it was trying to be very aware of the other shows that have been like this, and I'm trying to think of some, but I can't think of some to mind. But this is like, hey, this is the Shounen where we're collecting swords, but we're not going to focus on action. We're not going to focus on the bad guys. We're going to focus on the trivial adventure. The romance isn't going to be frustrating. And at the end, we're going to make it all come together and give you that ending you are kind of used to. And by the end of the anime, the first time I watched it years ago, I thought to myself, that was refreshing. But, I didn't really care for the lot of the political stuff they wanted to, because by the end, the revelations of the bad guy and how he made the swords, which was interesting, the fact that he basically tapped into the future using some psychic abilities to get the, he got future technologies from the future, because I think he came from a line of descendants that could, tell the future. Whatever.
Yeah, they were fortune tellers and soothsayers.
Yeah, and he used that to foresee the future and use technology, which obviously is a very clever way to explain why these swords have such crazy powers, which I thought very clever. But the bad guys, I forgot the team that get killed off one by one, they have a lot of...
The Maniwa Corps.
Yeah, thank you. They don't really go into them, and they've had relationships with each other. They're true ninjas at heart, where they find themselves disposable and they're very dedicated, and I like that. But at the end of the day, when they would go into battle and just kill themselves to talk about, you killed my friend and this, that, and the other, that kind of bothered me because it wasn't really fleshed out, not enough time. And I hate characters in any shonen, and this anime does commit that sin. I hate overpowered characters, and the main character's sister.
Oh yeah, it's just like insane, super overpowered.
Yeah, she came in the middle, and I like the fact that she was taken out in a way, but I don't know. That was probably the sister was the sourest point for me. Could have done without her, but she's there to make a point for the main character as well. So I'm going to kind of wrap this up and say overall, because to be honest with you, I've been kind of stalling because I want you to kind of go into your feelings, because I know for a fact, or I'm getting a strong feeling that you didn't enjoy this as much as me. A lot of it because of the execution of it being 40 episodes when you felt it could have been shorter.
You mean 45-minute episodes,
45
episodes.
There you go, sorry. 45-minute episodes each of 13 episodes. Thank you for correcting me there.
I mean, like, the length wasn't really the problem if they had done something else with it besides fill it in with talking. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I would have enjoyed it if they gave a little bit more action or something else, but it was filled with a lot of conversations, and these are usually like formal conversations too. Like, I'm talking about like the negotiating and stuff like that, or the wandering around and planning. I would come out and say, like, if I were to give this a rating, I'd probably give it a low solid B. I think it's better than most of what's out there, but it's not like, I like a lot of the original concepts and executions they chose to go with, but it's still weighed down pretty badly by some things like the pacing, like the 45-minute episodes, like I said.
Yeah.
For example, I found the storyline interesting though. The characters, which you spend most of the time with the two guys, they're entertaining to watch. Just they talk a lot.
Yeah.
But I thought that romance too was like interesting in a sense. Like, to me, I don't see it done a lot, so I would say it's more original than not. But I've seen this sort of thing done in like older black and white Japanese samurai films and stuff. Like, this is a kind of romance that's not that I don't want to say unoriginal. It's not that uncommon when you go back into that genre. So like when she's telling him, that she was just using him and that she didn't intend to fall in love with him, but then she did and stuff. That's something. That's like a speech that's happened while one of the characters is dying in a lot of other older black and white samurai films I've seen before. So like when I saw that happening, I was like, okay, so yeah, I mean, like I'm gonna take what she's saying for real. It's like she was meaning to use him, but then her feelings were real, and then she had planned to kill him, but she probably wasn't going to because I think she loved him and she wanted to keep him around.
That was my problem. I was stalling for that. Thank you for bringing it up, because that ending, especially the way she got shot and she got shot she got killed in a silly way which he could have prevented, but the anime's got to be the story. I think she could have been killed in a more believable way. When you just watch her get shot like that, it's like, really? I mean, come on.
Well, hold on. I don't think at this point they understood what pistols were. I mean, like in this anime, I mean, in history they would have, but considering that nobody really seemed to have any firearms or anything else, not any rifles or anything, I would assume that in this anime, firearms did not exist at this point.
Oh shit, son. You put me in my place. You're right. I didn't think about the historical relevance. You are correct.
Because like Oda Nobunaga won fighting a lot because he used riflemen instead of swordsmen. So like that happened before this, I believe. Unless I don't know. Oh god damn it, my brain.
Dude,
I can't remember. No, I can't remember if Oda came after the Shogun that's in the show or not.
You're not a history teacher. You don't have to worry about all the finer details. We're just podcasters.
I know,
dude.
But the thing is, like, I've seen it so many times, I just wasn't paying attention to the dates. So now I don't know, like, did he overthrow this shogunate, or was he, like, before them and he was conquering the country with rifles?
Guys, if you want to know more about the history, why don't you Twitter @the_Oprah. I'll leave it to link in the description down below. Let me wrap this up, because honestly, this review's gone way longer than it really should have. Guys, I do apologize. I know people, why are you going on about it? It's not that great. I know a lot of people do not think this anime is great, and this is one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about it, because I think it's really underrated. I agree with my rating. It's very similar to yours. I would give it just a solid B. It was never one of my favorite animes, but it's an anime I appreciated for doing things very differently, having a unique art style, slightly subverting certain things in Shounen and still being cool. But hey man, this is one of those animes that the mangaka Niso Isen, he's got a whole other series. Everyone knows him for the Bakagatori series. That's more modern with... He really went off the deep end with that one, but he has really cool dialogue, really fun dialogue, and none of his animes have got an English dub, because honestly, I think this would be a lot more enjoyable if it was advertised more as a light-hearted comedy and it was in English in your local language, whether you're in Germany or whatever. I just think it would be a sit back, enjoy. I think this was actually, but I know you're going to think I'm really weird for saying this. If this was an English dub, this would be a gateway anime that I'll give to people, just because... It's got a lot of historical things about anime. It's very quirky, and it does a lot of things that other animes don't. And it's more easier to get into. And it's long, It's very different from the 20 minutes. And I will say, if this was 20 minutes and it was just more the action, I think that would make it more like a lot of the other anime. To be honest with you, if you cut down, trim down the dialogue, and you make it a more traditional shonen, I don't know. I think it would have lost a bit of the magic for me, because I honestly did find the dialogue that fun. But I'm not gonna lie, did I enjoy reading those subtitles for 40 minutes, especially because they go back and forth so much? Guys, yes, I love subs as much as dubs, but this one, it's a bit much, especially when they're being very trivial with the dialogue.
I prefer subs over dubs, but I couldn't watch this with my girlfriend because there's too much reading.
Yeah, I know.
Like, there was way too much rapid reading for her.
Yeah. Even for me, it was a bit frustrating, even though I wanted to know what's going on. But I will say this again, I don't know if you guys know what's listening. When this anime was released, it was only released monthly. One episode a month, and it was released from January 2010 all the way to December 2010, the 12 episodes, one episode a month. So you got to digest it very slowly. And I could see that, again, in its execution, being a very different way of exposing the audience to an anime. Because I think there's only a few times. There's another anime we reviewed, Eternity Wish For, that was released like this as well, seasonally.
I don't know why that one was released like that, but Sword Story was because it's based off a light novel series and they released monthly.
Well, there you go then. Well, old boy has the answer. So I'll give it a solid B. Again, I think it's underrated. The other people really love this anime, and other people really think it's overrated. So I think our review kind of skews in the middle between really loved and overrated with a solid B-ish. So guys, it's an old one. If you've seen it, you've already seen it, you're wondering why, you disagree, or you agree, let us know what you think in the comments down below. And have you got anything else to say, old boy, before we sign off on this one?
Yeah, just to comment on the dubbing thing you were talking about. Like, if this was dubbed, I'd probably bump it up to a solid B and recommend it to people. But
yeah,
you basically have to be a speed reader like me to be able to appreciate it. Otherwise, there's too much fast reading involved for 45 minutes for somebody to really enjoy the typical viewer.
I agree more, and I will say that is the biggest hindrance to the anime, yes. And we are power anime watchers, but if old boy's saying that he's a speed reader and I'm kind of in the middle, then definitely take it with a grain of salt. But I definitely think this is the underrated one. Worth a check. If you watch the first episode, that's what you're getting for the whole of the anime. So check out the first episode. You ain't seen it. See if you like it. Continue watching. Don't. But overall, you could either see it as a short 12-minute or a long 24, because it ends up being that if you cut them into, cut the 44 minutes into half. So either way, old boy, I know this is a really weird one for it to be the last of our retro anime series, but this ain't gonna be our last anime review. It's just gonna be the last one of the older kilt, which I know people are so sick and tired of us talking about older anime, and I'm sure people are gonna have recommendations for us, because there's been a lot of recommendations of newer anime.
Oh yeah, you want to talk about Attack on Titan?
No, I don't want to talk about Attack on Titan.
Yeah, me neither. I don't know why they keep saying like review this stuff. It's like I'm not reviewing it because I'm not interested in the newer stuff. It's boring and dumb. I'm sorry, it is.
Yeah. So yeah, just I'll end on that little tirade. Newer anime is super derivative. They don't come up with any really new ideas. The only new anime that I'm really interested in, which old boy said in the very beginning, is when they're making manga adaptations of older manga. You know what I mean? That sounds...
Well, you know what? I'd kind of like to talk about the next season of One Punch Man when it comes out, because I enjoy it. I do enjoy it. I mean, it's dumb fun. I'm going to come out and say it's dumb fun, but I do enjoy it.
Sure. So, guys, that's it. It's a 40-minute review for a very old anime, but it's the last one. So, again, leave your comments down below. Look at the annotation you see on the screen. But if you're not on YouTube and you listen on the podcast, thank you for subscribing to our podcast. We really appreciate you guys. Oh, boy, I'm going to thank you for joining me on the very last retro anime review for Planet Tyro for the foreseeable future.
High five.
High five, bud. 7 years in the making. Retro anime manga. But we're going to do a lot more manga stuff next year. But me and old boy, I said this to old boy, we got a lot of TV to do, live action TV. So guys, stay tuned for that. That's when you're going to hear old boy most of the rest of the year. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, thumbs up, and we'll see you on the next recording.
See you guys around.